Okay, I think we have 15 minutes. We can continue with the text. So if you guys will, so let me share screen. So yesterday we stopped at this part, eclectic, this paragraph, means that we are choosing components from some parts of a spiritual system. Like in the example here, Buddhist mindfulness meditation with Christian prayer. Yeah. And then below, we will explore why this is not a good idea. Today, I'm going to change the style a bit because I think we will read a few paragraphs first before we go on to discuss, because these paragraphs are interlinked, interconnected, and we don't have to stop at each paragraph, so that the discussion is more organized and clear. Okay, so I will start reading first. Okay, yesterday we have finished this one, so I'm going to start from here. There are two interrelated flaws in eclecticism that account for its ultimate inadequacy. One is that eclecticism compromises the very traditions it draws upon. The great spiritual traditions themselves do not propose their disciplines as independent techniques that may be excised from their setting and freely combined to enhance the felt quality of our lives. They present them rather as parts of an integral whole, of a coherent vision regarding the fundamental nature of reality and the final goal of the spiritual quest. A spiritual tradition is not a shallow stream in which one can wet one's feet and then beat a quick retreat to the shore. It is a mighty, tumultuous river which would rush through the entire landscape of one's life, and if one truly wishes to travel on it, one must be courageous enough to launch one's boat and head out for the depths. Okay, any volunteer who would like to read next?
I can read.
Okay.
The second defect in eclecticism follows from the first. As spiritual practices are built upon visions regarding the nature of reality and the final good, these visions are not mutually compatible. When we honestly examine the teachings of these traditions, we will find that major differences in perspective reveal themselves to our sight. Differences which cannot be easily dismissed as alternative ways of saying the same thing. Rather, they point to very different experiences constituting the supreme goal and the path that must be trodden to reach that goal. Okay.
Thank you. Would you like to arrow or any volunteer before that?
Sister Mayan.
Hence, because of the difference in perspectives and practice that the different spiritual traditions propose, once we decide that we have outgrown this and feel that we are ready to make a serious commitment to one particular path, we find ourselves confronted with the challenge of choosing a path that will lead us to choose enlightenment and liberation. One cube to dissolving this alignment. Not sure this alignment.
Dilemma. Yeah.
Dilemma is to clarify to ourselves our fundamental and to determine what we see in a continuously collaborative pact. If we reflect carefully, it will become clear that the prime requirement is a way to the end of suffering. All problems ultimately can be reduced to the problems of suffering. Thus, what we need is a way that we end this problem finally and completely. But both these qualified words are important. The path has to lead to a complete end of suffering, to an end of suffering in all these forms, and to a final end of suffering, to bring suffering to an irreversible stop. Sorry, my English not so good.
Okay, thanks a
Don't
lot.
worry about it. Yeah, don't
Thanks
worry.
a lot for reading. Don't worry about it. Yes. Okay, I think it's a good point to stop here, a good checkpoint. Firstly, okay, anyone would like to share before I share? Maybe Shomei before you leave?
I actually, when I read this paragraph, actually what came to my mind in relation to my own experience is, okay, this talks about taking practices, seem to be talking about taking practices from different religions. And one thing that always bothered me about my own journey is that I go to different, I take teachings from different traditions, different Dharma traditions. And I always wonder whether I'm a bit guilty of whether I'm shopping, Dharma shopping. So it's something that I have never really quite clarified in my mind.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good point. But I think it is different for me. This is my opinion. Okay. I think it is different if you explore different traditions of Buddhism compared to exploring Buddhism and then Christian and then Islam, and then you mix it together. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's different. Yeah. Because ultimately these different traditions, they should point the same thing, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah. So, even for my own experience, I do had questions like, which tradition should I follow? Which tradition is the best? But finally, I came to term that people have different affinity, and people connect with different traditions, and whichever vehicles that they choose, as long as it leads them further away from suffering, I think that's good enough. Yeah. But thanks for sharing. That's a very good point. Yeah. Any others? Yeah. Didn't try.
Yes, I also agree with Marcel. I think, and Sis Shumei, I don't think you need to worry about, like window shopping, as long as you are not going to compare between the religions. But if you compare between the different traditions, I think it's absolutely okay. It's like some people, they believe in Pure Land and they only practice reciting the Buddha's name, for example. I think, like we don't have any objection to that. Like even before Shufu said that he was not so keen on chanting, but if chanting is something for you to quiet your mind, you can focus only on the practicing without having your thoughts roaming around. So I think it is a good idea. There is nothing wrong about it. As long as you understand what you are chanting, and the final purpose is to quiet your mind, and then you can practice, you can think of something really virtuous, and it helps you along the way to liberation. I think that is fine. That's my thinking.
I will have a second opinion.
Okay.
If you look right to the top of this passage from Bukit Budi, there was some part he mentioned. If you move up,
Okay.
I think it was 2 days ago, he did mention that as we go to a certain level of practice, a guru teacher is very important in guiding us.
Yes,
as
yes,
we
that's in the
advance.
preface there.
Yes, as we advance.
Ah.
So once you can see, for full commitment to the practice of the path, however, in its very advanced stages of concentration and insight, it will be extremely helpful to have a fully qualified teacher. So at some stage, if we are very committed to our practice, we need a teacher to guide us. And every teacher has its own tradition. And that means you are more committed to that tradition. So as we practice and practice and we practice, I'm sure you will come to us, which one, like what Marcel says, will be more in your heart, and you could incline into that traditions of practices. Practices is a key part in the Buddhism, not just listening, right? So different tradition has its different ways of practices. And once we get into that level of, not say high or low level, a certain amount of practices, eventually we will have some questions. And that's when we need a teacher. And that's when we have to decide a tradition, I think, at some stage.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it all depends on the individual, but it would be good at some stage to do that, I feel. Yeah.
Yes, for sure, yes. Okay, thanks a lot, Jolene. I think you made a really good point too, yes. But if you see some great teachers, even Bhikkhu Bodhi, he actually so learned that he also explore the Mahayana side. Yeah, so, and these people, they actually are in harmony. Like Venerable Tuten Chodron, she writes a book that compares all the different traditions. And she came to the conclusion that both are leading to the same path. Yeah.
Yes, actually, all the teachers have several teachers themselves. They don't only go to one teacher. So it's okay to have several teachers to guide us on our path, especially if you are, let's say, studying something and you want to know more about that, then you could always consult that teacher and they'll guide you along and then involve in their practices. And then as we moved along, you will actually, have several teachers to guide us. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's a good point as well. Because if you only depends on one teacher and the teacher suddenly, something happened to him or disappear or something like that, and then you just lost the teacher, and then it can be quite disconcerting. Yeah. Anyway, I just want to emphasize quickly the first. I think the explanation here is pretty clear that using different components from different religions would not work because of two reasons. Firstly, they compromise each other, and secondly, they point to a different goal. Yeah, but what I like the most from here is this last lines. Then when we ask the question, how do we actually evaluate which system that works for us? Then this last one that I highlight, if we reflect carefully, it will become clear that the prime requirement is a way to the end of suffering. All problems can ultimately be reduced to the problem of suffering. And if you think about it, in worldly life, this is also true. Like, why did your boss hire you? It is to solve some problems, right? Why did we have a lunch? It's because we are hungry and we have to solve the problem of hunger. Of course, most of the times we eat for pleasure as well. But the main problem that we are trying to solve is hunger. Yeah. So everything that we do usually solves some problem. Even watching entertainment like Netflix is solving the problem of boredom. Yeah. Then this is what I like from this text. Thus, what we need is a way that will end the problem of suffering finally and completely. Yeah, for me, this is quite illuminating. Both these qualifying words are important. Why? Because firstly, the path has to lead to a complete end of suffering. to end suffering in all its forms, and to a final end of suffering. By final, it means that it's an irreversible stop. So what does that mean? The way I understand it is that, let's say I want to solve the problem of hunger forever. This is a worldly example. Yeah? So what I want to solve is that when I eat, I want to solve my hunger completely. It means that my hunger, I want it to go away completely. So if I only eat 1 spoon, it does solve my hunger, but it is not complete. You know, it just solves it partially. I still have my hunger. Yeah. So in one sense, it does not solve it. And so to solve my hunger, I have to eat until I'm full, until I don't feel hunger anymore. But the problem comes tomorrow again. Tomorrow I will feel hungry again. Yeah. So that's why it doesn't lead to the final end of this problem, because the hunger will arise again. It does not put into an irreversible stop. Yeah. So when the text mentioned about complete and final, means that my hunger is completely solved, it's 100%, no more hunger, and then it will not come back again. It is final. It's the last time that it has I have hunger. Yeah. So this is the way I interpret these parts. Any comments before we wrap up? So let me explore the okay. I think today I want to end with this last paragraph. And it's something that we can think about in the day, and then tomorrow we can continue. So I will just read the last one. But here we run up again against another question. How are we to find such a path which has the capacity to lead us to the full and final end of suffering? Until we actually follow a path to its goal, we cannot know with certainty where it leads. And in order to follow a path to its goal, we must place complete trust in the efficacy of the path. The pursuit of a spiritual path is not like selecting a new suit of clothes. To select a new suit, one need only try on a number of suits, inspect oneself in the mirror, and select the suit in which one appears the most attractive. The choice of a spiritual path is closer to marriage. One wants a partner for life, one whose companionship will prove as trustworthy and durable as the pole star in the night sky. Yeah. So I think this is a beautiful paragraph. But I think what we can think about, I mean, some of you might have read the text below. The answers are below, but if you would like, if you will, you can think about this question. How actually can we find such a path? Yeah, and actually, to extend, why do we actually attracted to Buddhism? Maybe it's good to explore this sometimes. Like, yeah, to remind myself again, why do we do this? You know, waking up in the morning, sitting, you know, studying the text. Why? What does it do to us? How does it benefit us? Okay, to that, I will end this session here. 愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了，普愿罪障悉消除，世世常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。Okay, have an end of suffering day ahead.
Still a long way to go.
Final and complete.
Thank you, Brother Michelle. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Marcel.
Have a good day.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marcel.